So today we will talk about, I would say, the cornerstone of the identity systems is the privacy and privacy by design. So the privacy by design, it's the document that was created in Canada actually and have the seven fundamental principles. And it's quite a short one, so you could find the link in my article. So we have this principles. I really like the document extended with the more explanation. But let's first understand what the privacy is, because the privacy by design actually support the ensuring that we guarantee the user privacy rights. And actually, if you will go and read the GDPR in the European Union, so it was mainly inspired by the principles by design, but some other works. But right now, it's the practically the best manifest of the user rights and so on. So I already write a small article in my Medium, so we could go through it, and it contains some basic things. And I made a couple of mind maps. So the user, so what the privacy is, it's definitely quite philosophical term, but in terms of the identity system, it's protection of the user data and his digital rights, and actually the possibility for the user first of all have a choice, the second have a right to keep his life private, so it's super easy. And if we will take a look, so it's more related to the GDPR, but still the right to be informed. So you should know how your data will be processed, collect by the organization. It's no other exceptions to, so the right to have the access. So for sure you should have the access to your own data. You should have the possibility to edit this data, and it's what's more important, you should have the possibility to erasure and to be forgotten. And first of all, it's the biggest problem for all information systems recently, because for example, if you use Kafka, it's quite tough, and this erasure and retention, it's a big pain for the folks who tries to implement the GDPR actually. So and another right, it's quite broad one, is the right to restrict processing. And the right to restrict processing actually include the possibility to not be traced, correlated, and all other things. So it's quite broad rule, but the correlation, for example, it's a big thing. You could read my or you could watch the video about the correlation actually, and how the SSI solve this problem. Another right is the data portability. So if you decide to take your data with you, you should have the possibility to receive this data in some common structured format. And this one is really well supported with the SSI. And yeah, so the processing in one part, but the usage of the data is completely different thing. So the right not to be the object of any marketing or profiling or any other things is crucial. So and it's correlated toughly with the right not to be the subject of the automated decisions making and all of the things. So the AI that decide what kind of price you could pay, actually it's the illegal. So and it's the user rights that fixed by the GDPR. So right now, all the form, the understanding of the privacy on the legal and the architectural level, and it's what we should achieve with our identity and business systems. And actually, the privacy by design is the paper that I show you. It was created somewhere in the 90s. So in an article, it's a link to the paper itself, but it's a couple of principles that actually make the user privacy happens. So it's proactive, not reactive. So it will correlate with the concept of another thing that is quite important, but it's mean that you think before you get any privacy problems, and you make the proper design decisions. So it's correlate with privacy embedded by design. So you start with the privacy, you designed with the privacy in mind on every core component and every data processing flow and so on. The privacy by default, it's mean that user should not activate anything or do something to make it more private. It's completely wrong. So the system by default should apply all the possible privacy protection and user protection rights. So it's not something that could be switched off, and it's quite a big rule that people just violate quite often. And the full functionality, so it means that if you have all the privacy settings set it up, you're not compromising with any kind of functionality that you get. So if application just stop doing or stop delivering some feature because you switch all the privacy settings, but as we said, they should be switched by default, it's already violating the rule. Yeah, the end-to-end security, the full cycle security. It's mean that, as I said, it should be manifested in a design, but should be reflected in a implementation. So you should have all the data encryption, secure storage, access protocols, and all the things that needed to support this privacy design. And visibility and transparency, it's yet another important thing. And here we have the portability, we have all of the stuff that's supported by actually open standards, open algorithm, the libraries, and all of the things. So it's one principle that say that the way how you protect and encrypt information should not be the secret, and we should not rely on the secret. So this is the continuation of this rule. And the most important thing is the user centricity of the data. So that's user have the control, user have the choice, user have the privacy preferences, and we should give him the possibility to configure all this and should be compliant with all this. So it's 7 principles. We have the principles here if you really want to take a look. And yet another iconic document that I made the video how the laws of identity and correlate with the laws of the and principles of the SSI. So you could read this article actually here. It's quite interesting, and I have a video about this so couple of weeks ago, and we will try to understand and correlate actually the laws of identity and the principles privacy by design. So they have a lot of relations together, and I made this diagram. So and I try to explain the correlations here. So the every paragraph have the laws of identity and what kind of privacy by design principle is support. So we definitely see the correlations between the items, and I believe that it's two cornerstones and two quite important papers that the every person that works on the identity space should read and deeply understand. And it's create the triangle. So the principles by design, the laws of identity, and principles of the SSI. If you build in the SSI systems, it's super important to understand. So that's why I decided to make actually 2 parts of video. At describe somehow the correlation of every of these paper with each other. So uh, I really suggest you to read the paper, to read the article, and I will be happy to answer any kind of questions that you have on this topic. So that's it that I was keen to share with you. I will include the link to the article and the video to the article itself. So enjoy the watching.